Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's March 6th, and on this day in 1964, the boxer originally named Cassius Clay announced he was now Muhammad Ali. If you remember back to the February 25th edition of this dish, Ali shook up the world by beating the world champion Sonny Liston in Miami to claim the undisputed heavyweight title, still boxing under the name Cassius Clay. By this point, the 22-year-old Clay had already converted to Islam, but had kept it a secret. His win over Liston is actually the reason he became Muhammad Ali. On March 1st, he went to New York and he met with Malcolm X. At this point, Malcolm X had been ostracized from the Nation of Islam, and he was an adversary of Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Nation of Islam. Malcolm saw the 22-year-old boxer as a way to begin his own movement and convinced Cassius to give up his last name. He announced on the 1st that he would now be called Cassius X. Elijah Muhammad was not a fan of sports. He condemned it as frivolous entertainment. But the win over Liston thrust the young boxer into a place where Elijah Muhammad saw him now as an asset. He ordered the editor of the paper Muhammad Speaks to add several pages dedicated to boxing's new champion. So it became a sort of power play between Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad. On March 5th, Elijah Muhammad said the name Cassius has no divine meaning, and that the boxer should be now known as Muhammad Ali. When Cassius announced to the world on this day in 1964 that he was now Muhammad Ali, it further marginalized Malcolm X. 3 years later, in 1967, on this same day, the U.S. Selective Service ordered Ali to report to the U.S. Army. That was an order he would ignore, which would lead to his arrest and conviction of a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. He was never imprisoned while the case was under appeal, and his conviction was overturned by the Supreme Court in 1971. Also on this day, in 2015, the NCAA dropped the hammer on Syracuse head basketball coach Jim Boeheim, suspending him for 9 games, revoking 12 scholarships, and vacating 101 wins. It was the result of a long investigation conducted by the NCAA that dated as far back as 2001. The investigation uncovered academic misconduct, extra benefits given to players, a failure to follow the drug testing policy, and impermissible booster activity. The NCAA's statement issued on this day said, "Over the course of a decade, Syracuse University did not control and monitor its athletics programs, and its head men's basketball coach failed to monitor his program. The program was placed on a 5-year probation and excluded from postseason play that season." While Boeheim acknowledged responsibility since he was head of the program, his statement also threw the spotlight on what he called a former employee of the local YMCA and my former director of basketball operations in order to impose an unprecedented series of penalties upon the university and the men's basketball program. The former employee of the YMCA was a booster who paid 2 basketball players and 3 football players up to $8,000 to volunteer at the local YMCA. After appeals played out, most of the sanctions were upheld, but the scholarship revocation was reduced from 12 down to 8. If the 101 wins were added back into his coaching resume, he would still be second on the list to Duke's Mike Krzyzewski. And in 2000, it was another episode of Don't Mess with Shaq. This day's victim was the LA Clippers, so it's Shaq's birthday. Happy birthday, Shaq. In 2000, he was with the LA Lakers and was turning 28. So the Lakers and Clippers share an arena, And when they play each other, one team has to be designated the home team, and on this night, the Clippers were the home team. And with it being his birthday, he asked the Clippers for extra free tickets for his family coming to the game that night. The Clippers said no. So, Shaq bought the extra tickets, and then he recouped his money with interest that night. Shaq scored 61 points, grabbed 23 rebounds, and a 123-103 Lakers win. It was the first 60-20 performance in the league since Wilt Chamberlain did it back in 1969. Clippers interim head coach Jim Todd said after the game it was obvious he wanted to make a point. And he did, teaching the Clippers a lesson along the way: don't ever make Shaq pay for his tickets. And finally, today's non-sports Did You Know? British tanks are equipped to make tea. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website, seriously, all you got to do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you got to do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.